Howdy, I'm the Chinese Zodiac Killer, labeled a cannibal killer by the federal so-called Justice Department in conjunction with the media in my attempt to engineer mass media attention through a publicity stunt and activist as both an author of horror and the occult to share hidden secrets of reality I personally discovered and experienced, and eventually as a possibility getting enough attention through mass media awareness and collective reality to eventually get written in for Commander-in-Chief, thus enabling myself to achieve a position of authority necessary to make the changes needed to straighten out this shit show of a government and society while simultaneously achieving my ultimate goal of saving the planet and eventually evolving into a god. Yes, seriously. This video is part 2 in a series discussing how I personally would solve the immigration crisis, specifically illegal immigrants, if I was in such a position of command to do so that thinks outside the box of standard conformity regarding cliche political perspective. So I highly suggest watching part 1 first to get the complete perspective on this solution. To briefly recap, in part 1 I explained that illegal immigrants can be divided into 2 social classes: those who are innocent people struggling to find a better way of life than the destitute poverty they are trapped in, and those who are, in layman's terms, complete assholes. A good example of the aforementioned illegal immigrant would be a pregnant woman just trying to find a better way of life for her and her child. And a good example of the second kind I mentioned, the assholes, would be someone sneaking into the country with the intent to engage in terrorism, for example, or perhaps just some sadistic monster such as a serial killer. In part 1, the solution for dealing with these illegal immigrants who are assholes was public execution and arena-style combat for sport and entertainment, thus saving billions of unnecessary spending for the taxpayers while simultaneously stimulating revenue which could reverse the accumulation of our now trillions of dollars of national debt, while simultaneously cutting down on violent crime, pollution, and the population. But what about the other kind of illegal immigrants who simply want a better way of life? Anyone with empathy should be able to have some sympathy that these people are just trying to better their lives out of desperation, regardless of political views on the subject. Does that mean they should be let in the country and given free goods and services, as the left-wing politicians seem to typically imply? Absolutely not, for several reasons. For one, it completely is unfair to those people across the world making the required effort for perhaps years to attain legal citizenship. Imagine paying a lot of money and going through the massive amounts of paperwork and legalities and time to get legal citizenship, and then watch illegal immigrants crossing the border into the U.S. get everything for free. It is absolutely unfair to these people aspiring to achieve citizenship through legal means, and likewise unfair to the American taxpayer. Likewise, a large amount of the American population is completely against this. That alone creates division within the country, which compromises stability. Riots, prejudice, protests, violence, etc. result from both sides of these opposing political perspectives on the subject, dividing the country and weakening it. Likewise, with trillions of dollars of national debt, we cannot afford to babysit and cater to what a quick internet search implies has been likely well over 11 million illegal immigrants that were documented encounters in a short amount of time, not including the undocumented ones. This completely undermines the economy. Likewise, Americans already irritated with these illegals will only be more alienated with them moving into their living space. Thus, the Trump administration and typical right-wing way of political thought is to build a giant wall and round up every illegal and deport them. Now, while I can see the complete idiocy of the left-wing solution of letting these people in and giving them free goods and services, I'm also in the belief that the Trump administration, their solution is also unwise. And just to create a model for some reference, if it is true that we have even 1 million illegal immigrants coming in, at what my research says is the cost of roughly $17,000 to pursue the deportation process of even one single illegal. If my shitty math skills are correct, if we were to deport all 1 million illegals, that would be like a total cost of $17 billion or something to the taxpayers. If there are actually around 10 million more than that, you do the math and try to comprehend the staggering amount of taxpayers' dollars required to deport these people, many of which will likely find a way to re-enter and add to the cost again. Likewise, I question how much more money, staffing, and facilities cost to maintain through all this. This is not even getting into the cost of building a giant wall that stretches across the country. The cost of maintaining it, or the obvious fact that people are crafty enough to find a way to circumvent it somehow eventually, it just doesn't make sense. Not to mention there is a humanitarian crisis here. Frequently, we see liberal news exploiting stories of broken up families and children in detention separated from their parents and squalid or inhumane housing conditions. Now, let's think outside the box here. We can't let them in and give them free shit. But we can't deport them all and stick a wall up and think that this is some kind of a cost-efficient, realistic, and humane solution. So what do? My solution would be to accept them all and contain them so we can find the most efficient way to document every individual while sorting out the assholes who then get shipped to the arenas for entertainment and economic growth through blood sport and creative public executions. For example, smearing the estrus of a lioness on the assholes of rapists and then watching them get violated by male lions in front of tens of thousands of cheering fans eating shitty hot dogs and drinking shitty light beer, just as the Romans did. The remaining innocent people, simply trying to better their lives, would be given the chance to start new lives outside of the living space of naturalized Americans, thus not antagonizing them. There's plenty of remote territory owned by the U.S. that would suffice. Even an aircraft carrier adapted for such purposes instead of the usual military purposes would theoretically suffice. They're basically floating cities. You could use similar engineering concepts as that of an aircraft carrier built by these very immigrants who would live and work on them to instead function as a floating city and a massive factory. Remote at sea, the possibility of immigrants disappearing into mainland America would never happen. And the vast space available out to sea is endless. Now, the way I see it, 1 million immigrants trying to better their lives is 1 million strong backs and arms ready and able to work. They could build their own housing and apply their energy to whatever jobs are made available for them. For example, factory work, which if necessary, the factories themselves could be built by these now accepted immigrants. And just imagine a number of U.S. factories built and worked by 1 million people that just showed up asking for jobs. This would have to result in a massive amount of economic growth. Likewise, the management of such a vast and complex scenario would require an incredible amount of U.S. citizens to oversee, thus creating a ton of new jobs for Americans. Now, to sum it up, 1 million people who want to work basically are just showing up and offering their services to the American economy. As long as we contain them, they would not invade American living space while we put them all to work, solve the humanitarian crisis, stimulate massive economic growth, and create a massive amount of new jobs for Americans while eliminating the assholes of the world. I just don't get it. Why a wise commander wouldn't see the unlimited potential for millions of people showing up and asking for work. This alone could completely reverse the trillions of dollars in national debt. Imagine the cost of living for Americans drops to very little, and Americans get to live free lives, get free health care, retire early, and live the good life because we generously found a way to help millions of people who want to work for us and create massive revenue. So remember, kids, next time the election comes, you can write my name in, Jesse Bartlett, the Chinese Zodiac Killer. I'll prove our politicians are incompetent fools and corrupt assholes, while simultaneously entertaining you all. So like, share, and subscribe. Tell everyone you know. Check out my past content and stay tuned for more to come. Don't touch that dial, bitches.